So recently I pre-released a book called Synapse. And Synapse is about sort of the space between God and mankind, or God and creation, really. It's the ability for the created to grow in the absence but utter awareness of both God and the witness of God not being there. And that's sort of the idea behind creation and the reason for mankind and why we're here. But one of the things that I wanted to touch on that I go into some pretty significant depth in Synapse is how musicians follow the same cadence as the Bible. What I noticed in the Bible is that chapter and verse numbers follow a specific cadence. Every one follows a certain foundational principle. 2 is division, but together. 3 is a vacuum in the middle between 2. It's this weird kind of pattern that everything follows in the Bible, and there are different ways that you can study that and try to get to understand that. But the Cipher, my book called The Cipher, goes into some significant detail on how to do that. I'm also going to release a Bible study so that you can practice it, and you don't have to believe me that any of this exists. You can check it out for yourself. That's my ultimate goal, is to teach people how to use the encoded nature of the Bible to better understand it. But one of the things that I find to be fascinating is how modern musicians use this same pattern. And if we look at the story of Korah in Numbers 16, we see that Korah rose up against Moses, rose up against the law, and then Moses condemned them. The Lord condemned them, and they were Korah and his co-conspirators, if you want to call it that, were swallowed up by the earth whole. So Korah specifically was swallowed by the earth whole and alive. So then in Psalm 49:4, we see that Korah is propounding riddles on the harp, the sons of Korah. And then King David is obviously a psalmist. You have Psalm 43:1, where the sons of Korah are asking God to state their case. In other words, state the testimony. Jesus says that God will eventually testify for him, right? At least that's how I read it. So if we look at things like Revelation 9:6, it says that some people will want to die but can't. If you look at 2 Samuel 12:13, you'll see something really fascinating. You'll see that David's punishment is his sin will be taken away, and this is bizarre, his sin's going to be taken away, and the punishment is eternal life, like he can't die. Funny. It's really, really interesting. In other words, the wages of sin is death. He wishes he had sin so he could die. That's the wage that you get with sin. But the Bible keeps saying you can't sin, don't sin, don't sin. Well, you're not supposed to. That's the rule. That's the creation. You can't sin. But if you sin, then you can die. So anyway, it's really interesting. But what we have to recognize is Korah is singing, just like David sang to Saul in the cases when the evil spirit came over King Saul. David would play music for him. So when that happens, the soul is salved, I guess is the point. So what I did is I took the pattern and started investigating how it worked, this pattern in the Bible, and I was blown away. But what blew me away more than anything else is to recognize when I was driving down the road one day, listening to a song. I have no idea what song it was or what artist, but I noticed kind of what the backstory was about. I mean, I could hear that and I could understand that already. But what I didn't know is the cadence matched. So like 3:16, it's a famous verse, right? John 3:16. The 1 minute mark, the 2 minute mark, the 30-second mark, things like that. All of a sudden, it just made sense. So what I did is I started investigating this across countless songs, a bunch of artists, and started documenting it in a big old spreadsheet and compared it to different passages in the Bible, different books, different sections to see kind of how it held up. Did this make sense? And it turns out that it held up pretty well. I actually feel like it held up perfectly well, which is why I'm trying to communicate this. I think it's really interesting, but it's also telling of the kind of people that are around us that we can't see. This concept of discipleship, of people that have a story to tell, but they're bottled up and they can't say it. And that's the idea of the potter. Judah hung on the tree in the potter's field, and that's because he was the potter. So he had to live that life. So when he's bottled up, you hear a lot of musicians talk about being bottled up, or the idea is you have something to share, but you can't share it. It's the messianic secret. So anyway, in Synapse, the Appendix 7, in the 2 minute and 30 second mark, one of the things that I do is I compare 3 different artists. One is Justin Bieber, another is Jaden Hossler, and another one is Jelly Roll. All 3 have crosses on their face. All 3 are singing about God on a recurring basis. But this 2 minute and 30 second mark I thought was really interesting. So the songs are Pray by Jaden Hossler, it's Son of a Sinner by Jelly Roll, and then it's Lonely by Justin Bieber. And that's his, it's a live version that he did, but it's an official music video. And what's interesting about that one is he transitions to another song, Holy, in that particular, at that particular moment in the song. So what I found is that the 2 minute and 30 second mark in these 3 songs, and this was all chosen by random, by the way, all 3 indicate a cross of some sort. To me, it was staggering to see. Okay, so like in Pray, Jaden's there, and his mom in the video mom is standing there with her arms out, feet together in the stance of a cross, while his dad in the video is yelling at her, presumably. And the idea is, in the biblical world, if somebody is stoned, then they are stuck on a cross. That's kind of what happens. So if you're seen and somebody casts you out or says something bad about you, then in a spiritual sense, sort of thing, like you get bottled up. That's kind of the idea. It's weird. It's kind of hard to explain. There are other places that I explain that in a little bit more depth, but that's kind of the idea. And then in Justin Bieber's video, the cross changes color to purple. Well, blue and red make purple, and that is the idea of the cross. You're crossing over hell and sky to make purple in the middle. It's like Lydia in the book of Acts who's selling purple cloth. That's the idea. Well, it turns out that that's not necessarily desirable, but the point is that the cross changes over to purple. So you have a cross turning over. And in Jelly Roll's video, he's talking about walking a million miles, and he's also changing into a different person. So the million miles, that's the journey of the cross, the sort of forever, never-ending journey, and then crossing over to another kind of individual, another kind of person is the essence of that. So the cross is changing over. Think of Adam having his treasure chest, which is translated as rib, removed from him and created into a woman. Then that's a transition. That's a crossing over. That's changing. Just like Joshua was able to bring the people into the promised land because through circumcision with a flint knife. Jeremiah 50:37 says all foreigners are going to be turned into women. All foreign fighters are. The idea is you transition over into something that cries out in pain and agony for a spiritual gestational period of time. So that's cross. Anyway, at the 2 minute and 30 second mark, specifically, all 3 follow that. I just find it to be fascinating. So anyway, I thought I would share that, but I went through and did countless songs, verses, all sorts of things in this book. You can see it. Go through and see how all the songs correlate to each other and correlate with Bible verses, passages. It effectively chosen at random, but I explained the methodology so you can see it and you can try it out on your own. Can't wait for you to get a chance to take a look at it and let me know what you think.